In this video, you're going to be creating your own sign up and login template. That works pretty well. So currently, if we try to go to the home page, we can see that we get redirected back to the login page because it's a page that only someone who's logged in should be able to access. So we can see that we can't do that. But let's go ahead and sign up and make our new account. Of course, this is just a template that we're going to make, so you can add as many inputs as you want. But again, this is just an example. So the email, let's just say, for example, was webdevwithron@gmail.com. And then your password can be anything that you want. So let's just say 1234556. When we press on sign up, it's going to create our account and automatically log us in. But again, this is just the Next.js template page with a sign out button that we made. So here we have MongoDB Atlas opened. If I press on Browse Collections, we can see all the different users, but the one that we currently made over here, the password is actually hashed. So if somebody gets a hold of your database and they can take a look at it, they won't be able to just log in if they wanted to. So that's a safety measure that's going to be put into place in this video. So make sure you watch the whole video to learn how to do that. But of course, here we can see that we're logged in. If we reload, nothing happens, but we do actually have a token set up. So whenever we log in, we'll create a token and the expiration date is set to a day. So in 24 hours, we're going to automatically get logged out or signed out. And of course, you can change that to whatever you want. So you can set this to a month, 2 months, a few days, even a few hours if you want, but you can customize it to be whatever you want. Of course, we can sign out now and we can see that our token is gone. And if we do try to go back to the home page, it doesn't work. So let's try to log in and see if this also works. 126, and we're back to being logged in. And here's our token again. But before we get started, make sure to like this video because there's a lot of new information here. If you don't already know how to do this, subscribe to not miss upcoming content like this. And of course, make sure that you comment down below if you have any questions or if you have any video suggestions. But now, let's get started. We're gonna initialize a project as usual. So right click anywhere on your desktop. I'm gonna do it again. And there's going to be open in terminal. We're going to press on that. This will open CMD or PowerShell. And we're going to start by writing npx create next app at latest. And we're going to call this sign up underscore login. And I'm just going to call this template because this is pretty much what this is. So sign up login template and press on enter. We're going to say no to TypeScript, yes to ESLint, yes to Tailwind CSS, no to source directory, yes to app router, no to TurboPack, and then also no to import alias. And once it's done, we can see the new folder right over here. So a few things you can do is open VS Code and drag and drop it there. But what I'm going to do is just write code and then the directory of this. So since we're already in the desktop, we can write sign up, login, and then template. And if you press on tab, that should autocomplete. Now we can press on enter. And as we can see, it opened VS Code. So here we have the template for Next.js. So if we go to our view terminal and then run npm run dev, this will start our local server. So there it is. And if you hold left control and then click on this link, it will open a new tab with the Next.js template. And now that it's working, let's open our app folder and we're going to create a new route, which will be to sign up. And currently we should get some sort of error. I'm still compiling, but there we go. For this page cannot be found. So we're going to go into the app folder, create a new folder called sign up. And in here, let's create a new page.js file. We're going to start writing use client in here because we will be using hooks. And then we will export a default function called page. Just like that, we will return our elements. So let's just do a div with an h1 that says sign up. So go back and there it is. Let's also go into our globals.css file. You don't have to do this, but we're going to remove these styles just so that this will be light theme. And now let's actually open a new tab. And in here, I'm going to paste in this URL. You can find this down in the description below. And open this page. It will have a free template for Tailwind. So we're going to go to HTML, React, and copy this. So code and copy all of this stuff. Go back in this page. We're going to paste everything. And we will get an error because pretty sure, yeah, we accidentally copied everything. And we can copy this whole return Actually, we don't need all of this stuff. So I'm going to go back and then paste in the return. So there we go. And here we're going to have underlines for the image because this should be a Next.js image. So there we go. Make sure you actually imported this Next.js, and we are also getting an error because we don't have width and height. So let's fix that. Width of, let's do 48. Same goes for height. And we should get another error because of the URL. So to fix this error, we're going to go to the next.config.mjs file. And in here, we're going to add this domain. So we're going to write images. Make sure you spell everything right. And then here we will have domains. And then we're going to add tailwindui.com. Hopefully this should work now. So save everything. And let's see if that worked. So we're going to go back in here, refresh everything. And there it is. We still don't have the image for some reason. So let's go back into the page.js file. And then to fix this right here, dangerously allowed SVG, obviously you wouldn't need to do all of this on your actual website, but just for now, we're going to set dangerously allowed SVG to be true. So now this should work, and there it is over there. And of course, we still need to add some styles, but if we take a look in the page.js file, we have to add some styles in the actual layout.js file. So for the HTML, there it is. We're going to add a class name, add this in there. Going to close the CSS file. Then for the body, we're going to set height to be full. So we can add it right over here, maybe at the start. And now we can see that it's centered. So if we inspect this, just to test this out real quick, we can go in here and see what happens if we set the background to be, let's just say, dark. We can see that the whole page turns this color, so maybe we have to set these two. And as we can see, they're both separate divs, so we are going to have to make a whole div. So to fix the background, let's go back in the page.js. We can actually remove this right here. Then we're going to go ahead and create a new div. So since these two have the exact same thing, so we can see the small MX auto and so on, we can remove this and then do the same in here. Then we're going to create a div under here with a class name of that. And then we're just going to copy and paste all of this, and hopefully the spacing will be right. So let's open it. Actually, before we do all of that, let's just space this just to make sure that all of this will work. So we have the form paragraph. So there it is. Then we're going to copy all of this, cut it out, and then we're going to paste it in here. Let's add another tab between these two. So it's right up to the image. There we go. And now I'm pretty sure that should be working. So if we go back in here and then set the background to be slate, let's just do 100 for example, we can see that we have a background here now. So now we do have to change a few things, of course. We can actually move this class name over here because we're not going to be using that. And also we do have to add a few things. So here we will add rounded, and let's also do padding of 8. Then if we scroll down a little bit, we're going to change all the padding 10s to be 5. And then for the space y6, we're going to set that to 4. We're going to also start changing the text sizes. So this will be XL, font medium, so on. This will be margin 2. And then over here, instead of having on small, text small, we're going to set the text to be XL over here. So text XL, and we can remove this text base over there. Then if we scroll down in here with the label, so this will be text XL, just like that. This will be text XL. Keep scrolling. There should be a base in here. There we go. We can just change that to XL and then remove this. And then same goes in here. Let's see if we have any text. So there it is. So text XL. And then we have a text small here. So for the paragraph, we're just going to set this to medium. and let's see what this looks like. So there it is. It looks a little bit smaller than it should, but we're going to fix this in just a second. And all we have to do to fix that is to change this from small to medium. So now we can see that it gets larger. Of course, you can make this large if you want to. Then you're going to have to change the ratio a little bit, maybe add some padding, but we're going to keep this at medium. And this is what it's going to look like. So of course, we don't have one to forget your password. So what we're going to do is scroll down and just comment this out, because you can also use this in a different way, of course. But what we're going to do now is copy all of this, or we can actually just copy this whole folder, paste it under, and we're going to rename this to login. So now let's open it, change the text here. So wherever we had the sign into your account, this will be login to your account. And I just realized that we commented the wrong text, so we don't have forgot your password. We're going to go back in here, and wherever we had forgot your password, we're just going to comment this out. There we go. And instead of having this not a member, this and that, let's do 4 maybe, margin top, that'll be good enough. There it is. And here we're going to have a message to redirect them to the login page if they already have an account. So already have an account, not sure how I misspelled that, question mark. Then here we're going to write login, and to add a space here, let's remove this space right here. We're going to do this, and now there it is. So login, and this will go to login. Let's see if that worked. So if we press on that, we're going to go to login, and we're going to do the exact same thing in our login page. So let's actually just go ahead and copy this whole paragraph, paste it right over here, and we're going to change this to don't have an account, question mark. And here if you try to add this right here, you're going to get an error because they want us to use this syntax. So we're going to copy that, paste it in there. This will change to sign up, and this will also change to sign up. So just like that. If we press on sign up, we're going to go to the sign up page, and here if we press on login, we're going to go back to the login page. Oh, and also we have to change the button right here. So at login, we're going to change this to login. So login, there it is. And same goes for sign up. And this is sign in, which should be sign up. Okay, so here we're going to go sign up. And at the very top, I'm not sure if we have any more, sign in. So this should be sign up. There it is. So sign up to your account, then email, password, text is large enough, and of course the password gets kind of censored so we don't see it. Then we can press on sign up, and nothing's going to happen currently, but if you already have an account, you can press on login, log into your account, email address, password, and then of course you can log in after that. And now that we have the page set up, let's actually go ahead and work on the backend. So before we do that, we have to start with our sign up, of course. We have to create hooks for all of the variables here. So let's import use state from React. And I'm not sure if we really need all of that. We don't, so let's just go ahead and do this. But now if we create a variable here now, so actually all of this is one spaced out by one. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this, which will take a lot of time. So there we go. Now this should be a little bit better. This div should be right over here. Then this is of course stuff that happens whenever you play too much with the elements. Should be lower, div label. And so there it is. I finally fixed the spacing. And here we're going to create use state, which will be user. We will also have one for set user. And then use state just like that. And now let's go to our inputs. So this will be the email one. We will start by setting the value over here to be user.email. And then on change, we will get the event, and then in here we will actually set user. So instead of creating a separate function, we can of course do it in here. So we're going to set user to be the user that it previously was, so that the password wouldn't change, and then we will set the email to be the event.target.value. And now we can actually just copy this, or let's copy both of them. Go to our password input right over here, paste it, change this to password, and then this also to password, just like that. And we could have actually just set this to be the event.target.id, but in this case it's fine. So let's actually go to the button here, login, or I guess in this case it will be this, not the button, this is the button. So on click, let's just do this on click. We are going to console log the user, and of course we will fix this in a bit, so we're going to create a separate function for that. But let's open the console. Let's just say my email address was, I don't know, at gmail.com, and my password would be 123. Of course, this is the login page, so we have to go to the sign up. So let's do this again. We're getting an error, and we're getting an error because I forgot to set default value. So email will be blank. Same goes for password. And let's see if this worked now. So let's reload, of course. I don't know. 123, 123. When we press on it, of course, it's going to reload, but we did see that it console logged it. So let's go ahead and create a function for that. Const handle submit. Here we will get the event, and then we will write event or e.prevent default. Let's copy this, go down to the button right over here. We will run this function. We will be also getting the event. So now if we do the exact same thing, 123, press on sign up, it's working, but we just forgot to console log the user. So I don't know, at gmail.com, and the password is 123. So now what we want to do is send an API request to our server. So let's actually install a dependency called Axios. So npm installed Axios, and while that's installing, we're going to create a new folder called API, and then in the API folder we're going to have one for signup, and then we're going to have a route.js file in there. We're going to worry about this in a second, but here we're going to import Axios, and let's use a try and catch method in here in case we get any errors. So try catch the error, console log the error, and then we're not going to post this yet. We're going to e.prevent default, and we're going to start by checking if we have a user email and user password, because if we do, then we're going to want to send the request, and this should be in a sync function also. So let's fix that. Await axios.post. This will be going to API, and then sign up. We will be also passing in the user. So this will not work right now, so I'm just going to comment this out. But let's just say else if we had no user.email, and then also no user password. We can actually set this to or, so that it works in both cases. And here we will actually be setting a value of an error message that we will have. So let's also do that real quick. So we will have error message, and then set error message. Currently it's going to be blank, but we will be changing that, of course. So we can go down in here. We will have a span above it. So span with a class name of text large, and then font bold. We're also going to set the text to be red 600, and then we're going to write the error message in here. So if we go up in here and set the error message to be please fill all the fields, go back and press on sign up, we're going to see the error message right over here. We're going to set this to 2. And if we go back into the form, let's also add a margin bottom of 2. So just to add some spacing in there. but of course, this is just a temporary error, so it could look whatever you want it to look like, but in this case, it doesn't matter. So if we do this, we should actually remove the set error. So set error message to be blank, and then the response will be this, but nothing is actually going to happen if we do this. So now we're going to go to the backend right over here, and we're going to start by importing next response from next server, and then export const post. This will be the function sync request. And to make this work, we are going to have to connect to a database, also create one and do that kind of stuff. So we'll have a try and then also a catch with an error. Here we'll be const logging the error, but then also returning a next response. So for now, all that we want is the email and also the password. That'll be await request.json. And we're going to console log the email and password. Then we're going to return a next.json.response, which for now will have a message of, let's just say, user created successfully with a status of 200. But of course, nothing is being created, so we can go back in here, reload everything. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, sign up. We're going to get our status of 200 with the data with the message being user created successfully. So that is pretty good. And now you're going to want to open your browser and search up MongoDB Atlas, and this will be our database. So if you haven't learned MongoDB yet, then make sure that you do, because it will make this video easier to understand. So make sure that you do that. And if you don't have your MongoDB Atlas account set up with a cluster and that kind of stuff, then make sure that you check my previous videos. I will actually link them down below now, and you should be getting a pop-up card now on how to set everything up, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So you're going to want to go ahead and create a cluster. You can do this for free. We're going to press on connect over here, go to drivers and copy this URL. Now we're going to go and create an environment file here, so .env. And if you don't know what an environment file is, it's a file which is used to protect sensitive information. So if we go to the git ignore, if we take a look at the env file, we can see that it's included because when you upload a GitHub repository and you actually publish this, nothing in this file will be shown up in there, and this is pretty much kind of like your safe, so you can have sensitive information in here, but we're going to have our URL in here because we are going to have our password and stuff. So I'm just going to name this the MongoDB URL, and in here you're going to want to have your username. So to find all of that stuff, you're going to go to database access, and we can see they already have a user called admin, so that's where the name came from. If you don't have one, press on add new database user. Then after creating this stuff, make sure that in the built-in role you add a new one and set this to be Atlas admin so that you can do anything you want with it. But of course, as always, I'm just going to edit my password, create a new one, copy it, update the user, and then I'm going to paste it right over here. So if your name was something different like Bob, you would set this to be Bob over here. But one more thing that we have to do now is remove this stuff. So from the very end up to the question mark, we're just going to remove this. And the name of the collection in this case will be, let's just say, sign up DB. And now we do have to do a few other things. So we're going to create a new folder outside called models, and also a DB config, but we're going to start with the models. In the models, we're going to have a file called user model.js. And it's going to be a pretty simple file because we're not going to have much stuff in here, but we do have to install Mongoose. So npm install Mongoose. And then here we're going to import Mongoose from Mongoose. I'm not sure what I just did there, but we're going to create a user schema. And of course, again, if you haven't watched my previous videos on Mongoose, then make sure you check them out. So for the schema, make sure that you spell everything right. But all that we're going to have is an email, which will be a string, and then also a password, which will also be a string. And then under, we're going to be creating the model, which will be called user. Here we're gonna write mongoose.models.users. I misspelled something here, I'm pretty sure, but or mongoose. I'm not sure what happened there, but now it's working. So mongoose.model. This will be users again. And then we're going to be using the user schema. Now we're going to export default user. So now that we have our model set up, we're going to create another folder. This one is called dbconfig. And of course, if you already have this stuff set up, you can just copy and paste it because it's the same as the previous one that we've made. So you can go ahead and copy and paste it, but we're going to create it from scratch. So import mongoose from mongoose, and here we're going to be actually connecting to the server. So this will be an async function called connect. We're going to have a try and catch method in case we have any errors. So here we will be console logging the error, and then above we will be connecting to mongoose, so mongoose.connect, and this is where the URL comes in handy. So process.env, this is how we access the environment file. .mongodb URL, I think that's what the name was, so let's just copy and paste it just in case I misspelled it. But then we're going to have a variable for connection, which will be the connection between mongoose and the server. And then it's kind of like socket, so connection.on. It's not really like socket, but it looks kind of similar to it. So on connected, all that we're going to do is actually console log something, so we don't need a callback function for that. Let's fix this. We're going to say connected to MongoDB, then on an error, so on error, we're going to be getting the error, and then we're going to be console logging the error. Or actually, we're going to be doing one more thing. So fix all of this, but we're going to be console logging the error, and then we're also going to be exiting out. So .exit, and this is actually going to be it for the dbconfig file. And now that we have everything set up, we can go back to the Signup API, and here we're going to be importing two things. So the first one will be connect from dbconfig, and then we're going to be connecting outside of the function. Then we're going to be also importing the user from models and then user model. So now if we go in here, we should be able to just remove this, or we're going to comment this part out, remove this, and we're going to be creating a variable called user, which will be user.find1, and then we're going to be using the email. So what's happening here is we're trying to find if there's a user with the email that we currently have, because if we do, of course, we're going to be sending back some sort of error. So if user exists, then we're going to be returning a next response with a message of user already exists and a status of 400. So now that we have this set up, we're going to be creating a new user. So const new user, which will be new user. This is just an object, of course, using our user from the database. So here we're just going to have the email and password, and then we're going to be saving it. So new user.save, just like this. And of course, then we can return our next response of user created successfully. But now if we go back to the page, we're going to be console logging the response and seeing how all this stuff works. So let's go back in here, reload everything. Let's use this email again. So email.com, email.com, and the password will be 123. So if we press on sign up, we're getting a status of 200 and user created successfully. So everything works. But now if we try to press on sign up again, we can see that we're getting an error which says bad request, and that's because this user is already created and it's already in there. So if we go to the clusters, press on browse collections, we can see that we do have our user now. And of course, we can see the password, which is not a good thing, but we're going to be working on that. But now if we try to create the user again, so gmail.com 123, press on sign up, we can see that we get this right here, which is not really similar to the other one that we get. So if I make up another one, we can see that this is an Axios error, and then this is just the data. And this is all because of the status code that we gave it. So since we're getting the error, it goes into this catch over here. And if we set this to status, just like this, press on sign up, we're going to be getting the status. So we can use the statuses for our advantage. So we can say right over here, we can still console log it. So if error.status, and of course we can still use the response. So let me just show you. Response.data. If I press on sign up, we're going to be getting the message that says user already exists. So you can also use that, of course, but we're going to be using the error.status. So if that's equal to 400, then what we're going to do, we're going to be console logging this anyway. Then we're going to be setting the error message to error.response.data.message. So let's see if that worked. Let's console log this just to make sure that, yeah, it's undefined. So data would be that, and then the message. Okay, so I misspelled the message over there. So message, same goes in here. Try this again. So we're gonna go back in the page.js message. So hopefully now this will work. There we go. So user already exists. So now that this works, we're going to be working on actually hashing our passwords so that they don't look like this. So let's refresh this. We have 123, 123, and 123. So let's go ahead and work on that. And so for us to start hashing, we do have to install a dependency. So npm install bcrypt.js. Make sure that you spell everything right while it's installing. Well, it's already done, but the way that hashing works is it combines the password that we get. So for all of the users that we had, it would be 123. It combines this with a random string of characters, and then that random string of characters is called salt. So just to show you how this works, let's import bcrypt, and hopefully this will make more sense. But bcrypt.js from bcrypt.js, we're going to go down in here. Let's not create any users, but what we're going to do is we're going to create the salt first. So salt will be await bcrypt.js and then gen salt. I'm going to go over what all this does again in just a second, but let's create this and console log the salt just so you guys can see what this looks like. So let's remove this ADS. And now if we go back to Node, we can see that this is the salt that we get. And so now if we combine these both, so let's actually keep this console log so you can see the difference. So const hashed password, I'm going to capitalize the P. That will be equal to await bcrypt.js.hash. And then we're going to be hashing the password with the salt that we're creating. So, or created already, but now if we console log the hashed password right over here, we're going to see the difference between the salt and then the hash password. So let's actually take a look and see what that looks like. So sign up. This will be the salt, and then all of this together will be our hashed password. So now if we go back in here and reload, of course, we don't get anything because we're not saving the user, but if we did save the user, so new user and then password would actually be hashed password. Then we would create the new user, and then let's remove this. And so now if we try to run this again or do this from the very beginning, so I'm just going to remove all of the different users that we have because we can see their passwords and we don't like that. So we can create our I don't know again from scratch. The password is 123. Press on sign up. Nothing is happening in here. If we refresh the page, we can see that now the password is secure, and obviously we can't even tell what this is. But now that we have this, I'm going to try to go over all of this just so that you really understand how this works. So let's go ahead and do that. So from the start, the salt variable right here is a random string, which is going to be added to the password before hashing to ensure that even if, for example, we had two users, they had the same passwords, their hashes would both be different. And so this 10 that we have over here is the cost factor, which determines the complexity of the salt. And so the higher the number here, the more secure it's going to be, but it's going to take a lot more time to decode it. And 10 is a balanced choice. So 10 is a really common choice. A lot of people choose this as their cost factor. And of course, after we have the salt, this bcryptjs.hash function takes the plain password that we have and then the generated salt and combines these two by using the bcrypt hashing algorithm, which produces the hashed password. And so now that we understand how hashing works, we can close this, go to our login, and this is not in the APIs, which of course we're going to be making later, but let's work on our login now. And this is pretty much the exact same as their sign up. So we're going to copy this, go in here, paste it in here. And again, of course, I'm going to fix the spacing real quick. But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to cut this out. And actually, let's just do this. Maybe this will help. It didn't, so I'm just going to do this manually. And I will be back once it's done. And so now that I'm finally done, this took forever. We're going to go back to our inputs. So right over here, actually what we can do is copy most of this stuff. So this will be for the email. And then same goes for the password, which is going to be right over here. So copy this, scroll down, and then we're going to have it right over here. Go ahead and do the same for the button. So right over here. And of course, we do have to make this function now. And so for the handle submit, we can actually copy all of this and paste it right over here. And for the error, we do have to copy an element, I'm pretty sure. So this span over here will go right over here. Not sure what just happened, but right over here. And then I'm just gonna make sure that the styling is similar. So login, use state is not defined. So let's import this. So there it is, press on login, and we have our error message. And so this should be working now. But of course, this has to change to login. And we don't have an API endpoint for login. So login, and then let's just actually copy and paste this over here. And we're gonna actually remove all of this and pretty much start from scratch. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna be creating a user variable for our users. So we're going to be searching through the database using our email. And then if we don't actually find any user, then we're going to be sending an error, which is going to say user does not exist. So return next response.json. And then the message will be user does not exist. And then we're going to give it a status of 400. So that they can't just give us random emails. And then after that, if we do have a user, now we're going to actually validate their password. So here we're going to be using bcrypt again, which we already have imported. So we're going to write const valid password. And I'm going to go over this in just a second. Let's just write this out first. So await bcrypt.js.compare. Here we're going to be comparing the password that the user typed in the login form, so whatever we type in here, with the password of the user. And let's just console log valid password and see what we get in here. So let's go back in here. We have the I don't know@gmail.com, and then let's just say I type in 123. We are going to get an error. So for now, let's just console log the error. And it says Axios not defined, so all we have to do is import this. And now if we go back and press on login again, and here our response is going to be empty with no data. So that just means that something went wrong somewhere. So we do get this error, but if we actually scroll up, we do get this true. And the reason we're getting an error is because we don't have or we're not returning a next response. So let's go ahead and do that. This will be 200, and let's just say that user logged in successfully, just so that we don't get this error. So I'm just going to actually restart this so that we have no errors. Reload the page. It's going to take a little bit of time. So there it is. Let's use the email again, 123, and there we go, we get a true. But now if we do, for example, 321 and press on login, we're going to get false. So bcrypt is comparing our password, but now I'm going to go over how it actually does that. So whenever we call bcrypt.compare, it hashes the first parameter, which is the password that we're getting from the login page, using the same salt as in over here. So this salt right here with the cost factor and the stored hash, and then it compares it, which is how we get true or false. So as an example, let's go back in here. We can see that this is the hash password for 123. So this is what it kind of looks like. So it's comparing the password, so 123, comparing that to this right here. So these two are strings, so let's do that. And so again, what's happening here is that the compare hashes the first parameter, which is the login value, using the same parameters as we have over here, and then it returns true or false depending if they are the same. So hopefully that made a little bit more sense and you know how this works. But now that we have this, we can return another response if that's not true. So if no valid response or password, and this just means if it's false, so if not true, then we're going to return a next response. I'm not sure why I did that, but return next response, and here we're going to say invalid password, and we're going to give this a 401. And so now that we have this set up, let's go back and see what we get. So let's say 123, we're going to get a status of 200, which means that we can go to our main page. So let's go back to the page, or sorry, let's close the API folder, go to login, and here we're going to import one more thing, and that would be use router, which will help us navigate a little bit. So const router, and make sure this is actually from Next navigation. So Next navigation. So now if this is right, so if we're not getting any errors, so let's say if response dot status equals 200, then we're going to push to the main page. So just like this. So let's try this. I don't know. And let's just say our password was wrong. When we press on login, we do want the error to show up, which we're going to do in a second. But if we do the password right, we can see that we're going to get redirected back to the main page. And now for the error, that would be right over here. So it would be 400, or it would be 401. Let's see if that works. Please fill all the fields. 321, invalid password. And then if we had an invalid email, user does not exist. Okay. So that works. And if you actually want to, you can say that email does not exist or something like that, but we can keep it at user does not exist. Or another thing you can do is actually have the same message for both, just so that they wouldn't know if the email was right and the password was wrong, because you never know, maybe there's someone who's trying to hack into the other user's account or something, and if they get their user right, then they're just going to keep trying passwords until they get it. But that's where other stuff is set up, which we're not going to do because it's just a very basic sign up and login page. So we're just going to keep it like that. And now that we have our login done, we're going to be working on actually setting up a cookie so that our session saves. So currently I'm not logged in, or there isn't really anything that's telling us that we're logged in. So I mean, I might be logged in now, but we don't really know that because we don't have a cookie set up which saves our login session. Because I can go to the sign up page, and then if I really want to, I can go back to the home page, which we shouldn't be able to do. So to set up our token, we first have to install a dependency called JWT Token. So npm install JWT Token, and then press on enter. And so the next part, we're going to be doing something that's not really necessary, but it's still a useful tool to have. It's a file called getTokenData, and in there we're going to be extracting the information from the token, but we're not going to be using it in this project, so you can go ahead and skip it if you want, but it's still something useful that you should have. And now we're going to create a new folder called helpers. So helpers, and here we're going to create a file called getTokenData.js. So the first thing that we're going to import is going to be next response. This is going to be server side. And then we're going to import JWT from JSON Web Token. Here we're going to export a function called get token data, and then we're going to be getting the request. And again, as always, we're going to have a try and catch method in case we get any errors. And here we're going to return the error, so next response dot error. Or in this case, if we're getting errors, that would usually mean that we don't have a token. So we can write .json, and then the message would be invalid token with a status of 500. And make sure we fix this. So there we go. And now inside of it, we're going to create a variable called token, and here we're going to be getting it from our request.cookies.get token. And this is really similar to local storage, so think of this as local storage.get, and then this would be the name of the variable, so token, and then we're going to be trying to get the value. So this question mark is here saying try to look for a value instead of token, and if there's no value instead of token, then just set this to null. And then here we're going to decode it, so let's call this decoded, and then that would be JWT.verify. But here we will be creating another variable in the environment file called JWT secret, make sure we spell this right, secret key. But then we're just going to return the decoded.id. And before we forget, let's go in here and write JWT secret key. And I'm just going to set this to 123 for now, or 132. So again, in here we're going to try to look for a token inside of our cookies. So if we inspect our page, go to memory, go to application, and if we go to our cookies, and here it's going to look for a token. And in this case, we don't have a token, so it's just going to set it to be equal to null. And if we do have a token, then it's going to try to verify it right over here. And it does that by decoding and validating the token using the provided secret key, which is also misspelled, funny enough. So secret key. So let's make sure this is all right. And so the reason we need this secret key is that when a server creates a JWT token, what it does is it combines stuff like the ID, email, and that kind of stuff that we have with a secret key, which is going to be this right here. And you can actually set this to be whatever you want to generate a signature using a hashing algorithm. And I misspelled the value here also. So that's a pretty small mistake, but could cause a lot of trouble. And with that set up, we can go to the route.js file inside of our Signup API folder. And here we're going to create our token or cookie after we create an account so that it automatically signs us in or logs us in. But after we save the user, we're going to want to create the token. So to do that, we're going to write const token. And this is going to be the token data. So we're just going to call this token data. And then we write JWT .sign, make sure you spell everything right, ID, which would be the new user's ID, so .id, and then here's where we put the token, so the secret key, so process.env.jwt, and I'm gonna actually just copy this, paste it in here, just so that there's no misspelling, and here we're gonna put the date of when it expires, so expires in. And usually it could be somewhere for like 30 days, which is a month, but in this case we can just do a day. So this token will be valid for a day, and then once a day passes, you would have to log in again. So now that we have our token data, we're going to have to actually create a variable, which is going to be the next response. So we're going to cut this and write response equal to this, because then we're going to be setting the cookies of the response, so response.cookies.set to be the token data. So the name will be token and then token data. And then we're also going to add HTTP only, which we're going to set to true if I can spell this. HTTP only, true. And this will be it. So now we can return response. And this should be working. So what we're going to do is copy all of this, go to our login page, or go to our login route.js, And we're going to do the exact same thing here. So we're just going to paste this. So token data, and then we have a response. So I'm just going to cut this, paste it in here, response, and this will be it. So now if we go back in here, actually before we do that, let's go to our application cookies. We can see that we have no data. So even if we reload or refresh, there's nothing here. But as soon as we actually log in, let's refresh everything, we're getting an error. And that's because I forgot to import this. So JWT from, and let's go to the login. And this will be from JSON Web Token. Let's paste it in here too. And try again. So let's refresh, log in, and we're getting another error. And that's because of the ID. So in here, we're using the new user, which we should be using the user from the login that we're getting since we're not creating a new one. So let's go back in here, try again. And so now it redirected us back to the main page. And if we go to application, we can see our token, and here it is. It's pretty long, but let's check our sign up also. So I'm just going to delete this. And now if we go to the sign up page, let's create a new user. So just do some random letters at gmail.com. And the password, I'm just going to do 123, sign up. And there we go. Here's our token. And now there's one more thing left to do, and that's if you don't have a token, we should be able to go to the home page, but currently we are able to do that. So to fix that, we're going to create a middleware file here. So I'm just going to close the app folder. Same goes with the helpers. And here we're going to create a folder, or not folder. It's going to be a file called middleware.js. And this is going to be a file that runs every time before any page is loaded. So this is where we're going to be redirecting the user back to a certain page. So if the user goes to the home page and they don't have a token, it's gonna redirect them back to the login or sign up page. It depends on where you want to send them, but we're going to start by importing next response, and then also something called JWT decode, which we also have to install. So let's go ahead and do that. npm install. I misspelled that. So let's do this again. npm install JWT decode. And I'm just going to comment this out while it's installing. So export const middleware. That will be an async function. Request. And then first thing that we're going to do is get the path that we're on. So const path, and that will be request.nextURL path name. And let's also import the JWT decode. So there it is. What we're going to do is make a variable that will be true or false depending on the path that we're on. So this one's going to be called isPublic, and that will be dependent on the path. So if the path is public, so let's just call this isPublic path equals to path. So if our current path is at the login, then we want this to be true. Or if path equals to signup, so signup, then it's also going to be true. So if it's any other paths, then it's going to be false. So if you have any other paths, then you're going to want to add it in here. But then what we're going to do is get the token. So token will be request.cookies.get, and then token.value, or it's going to be blank. And now we're going to be using isPublic path to redirect the user to the right path if they're logged in or not. So let's go ahead and do that. So if no isPublic path, so if isPublic path equals to false, and we don't have a token, then we're going to return a next response dot redirect, which will redirect the user to a new URL, and we can set this to login, but then we're also going to be passing the request.url. And before we test if this works, actually we have to finish this. So else if isPublic path and no is token expired, this will be a function that we're going to create in a second, which will be checking if our token is expired. Then we're going to return the next response dot redirect to a new URL at dash, which will be the home page, and then request.url. So if we do have a token and it's not expired, then what's going to happen is it's going to redirect us to the home page. So now let's make this function. So const is token expired equals to token. Let's fix this real quick. So here we're going to have a try and catch method. So try and then catch with an error. Here we're going to return true. And then for the try method, we're going to decode the token. So decoded token equals to JWT decode token. And then here we're going to be returning the decoded token dot expiration date, and then date dot now, and we're going to divide all of that by 1,000. So again, I'm going to go over how this works in just a second, and we do have to do one more thing, and that will be all of our paths. So this will be const config, and then we're going to have a matcher in here with the paths that we have. So currently we only have a home page, so this will be that. Then we have a login page, and then we also have a signup page. And now we have middleware invalid middleware config. And the reason I had an error is because I forgot to add this in here, but let's run npm run dev again. And hopefully this should start and everything will work. So let's go back in here, reload. Let's see if we have our token. We don't have a token, so this should redirect us to the login page or whatever page we have in here. So in this case, it will be login. It's compiling, and let's see if it redirects us. So there we go. Now we can see that we're back in the login page, and we have an account. So I don't know, gmail.com. Password is 123. Login, and let's see if this works. Maybe there's an error or something. No error, but there we go. So now we're in here. If we try to go to the login page, we can see that we get redirected back to the home page. Same goes with the sign up page. And now, for example, if we didn't have the token anymore, so if we removed it and reloaded, it would throw us back to the login page. And now is a quick walkthrough of the middleware.js file. I know I didn't really go over the JWT decode, but this dependency is used to decode JSON web tokens without verifying their signature, and it's used to extract information. So as we can see over here, like the token expiration date, which is exactly what we're doing. And now moving on to the middleware function, this path right here, variable, is set to the URL that we're currently on. So if we're in the login page, then this is what the path is going to be set to. Then we have this is public path, which is a bool variable, which checks if the current path is login or sign up. And if it is, then it's set to true, which means that over here, if the user is on a non-public page, so if it's a private page and we don't have a token, then what's happening is we're redirecting the user to the login page because it's a private page like a dashboard, for example. And of course, there's no token, so that just means that they're not logged in. So we want to redirect them to the login page, or you can change this to whatever you want, of course. And then in here, if it is a public path and we do have a token, which again is not expired, and we're going to go over this function in a bit, then we want to redirect the user back to the dashboard or whatever page you want again, just because they're logged in and we don't need them trying to log in again or sign up or do weird stuff like that. So of course, this is where that comes in place. And now for the token variable, all that it does is it gets the token cookies value, and if it doesn't exist, then this empty string is returned. Moving on to the isTokenExpired function, and here the JWT decode decodes the JWT to access its payload, which includes the expiration date. And so in this line right here, we're getting the expiration date of the token, and we're checking if the token expiration time is smaller than our current time. And then if anything goes wrong, then we're just going to assume that there's no token, so we're returning true. So that means that the token is expired. And this returns a true or false value. And then for the middleware configuration over here, this is called a matcher, which specifies which paths this middleware should run on. So In the app, we want this to run on login, signup, and page.js if there's any files that you don't actually need. So let's just say, for example, you didn't really need the login or the signup, like you didn't want the middleware to run there, you can remove it. Or if you have any other pages that you want to add, of course, you're free to do that. But now we do have to do one more thing, and that's to create a logout button, which will log us out. And that's going to be it for the website. And that's going to be it for our sign up and login template. And so the way that we're going to make signing out work or logging out, of course, you can hit this however you want. You can have everything like sign up, sign in, and then sign out. But it really just depends on how you want to name your stuff. But what we're going to do is go to the API folder and create a sign out route. And in here, we're going to create a route.js file, or we can actually just copy this, paste it in here. And here, there's not much that we have to do, so we can just delete all of this. Move the response to, or we can keep the response. But here we're going to create the response variable, response, and that will be next response.json. And we're going to have a message of user logged out. And then let's also add successfully. Then we're also going to have a status of 200. And now we're going to use this response.cookies to set our token to be blank, and we're going to set HTTP only to be true, and also add expires to new date. We're going to set this to 0, and then we're going to return our response, and then we can also remove these imports that we're not using. Also, same goes with connect, because we're not connecting to the database in this case. But to start off, this response variable is a JSON response, next response.json, with our message and a status of 200. But the next line uses our next JSON response, and it takes the cookies from our page and it sets the token inside of our cookies to be empty. And for the expiration, what it does is it puts a past date, so new date 0, which deletes the cookie. And then the HTTP only flag ensures that the cookie is not accessible to JavaScript on the client side, which is for security reasons, which of course is for security reasons. And then we're returning our response over here. And now there's one more thing that we have to do, and it's to add a button that will send a request or a post request to this API. So let's actually just close everything. And also, for the environment file here, make sure that you actually set this to be some sort of key. You can write some gibberish, but make sure that you always know it. So now if we go back to our dashboard or whatever this page would be in your case, I'm going to actually open it. And if we were logged in before, which I'm not really sure, we can see that I'm back to the login page. And that's because I'm recording this the next day. And of course, the expiration date is set to 1 day, so it logged me out. But here, let's log in again. 1, 2, 3. It's going to take some time because it's the first time I ran our page over here. So there we go. And here is our stuff. So instead of one of these buttons, we can have our sign out button. And maybe if you really want to, you can remove all of this boilerplate code. And so for now, let's remove both of these anchor tags and create a button, see what that would look like. Here we're going to say sign out, and then for the classes, I'm going to try these and see what those look like. So they don't look the best. Maybe go back to the anchor tags. I'm going to copy class names here. Try again. So button, we'll say sign out, class name, paste all of that in there. Here it is. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, remove all of this. We're going to start by setting the background to be slate. Let's see what we have. This, and then the text color to be white. Then we're going to add padding x of 4, py of 2, and we're going to set it to be rounded. And let's actually just take the button out of here, paste it over here, and let's try mx of auto and see if that will center itself. And there it is. So now what we have to do is add an on-click event listener or on the button. So in here, let's write, actually, let's space this out like that, but let's write on click. And then here we're going to run a callback function, which is called handle sign out, and we're gonna go up in here, create the function, and then we're gonna have to import. So import Axios from Axios, and here we're gonna have a try and catch method. Here we're gonna get the error. We're gonna console log the error force, unless of course you don't want that. And then in here we don't need to get the response. So we're just gonna write await. Make sure this is also an async function. So async function, and then await axios.post, and then we're going to be going to API and then sign out, just like this. And let's see if anything works. So that didn't work. That's because we have to write use client at the very top here. So there it is. And now when press on sign out, this might take some time. We can see that nothing really happened. So unless we go to our application, and we can see that there's nothing in the cookie, so all that we have to do is refresh. So we can import use router from router, and then we're going to create a router variable in here. And then once that's done, we're going to write router.push, and then you can send this back to the home page, and then that will redirect to whatever it's set in the middleware. Or another thing you can do is redirect it to whatever page you want. So now if we go back in here, we can see that we get automatically redirected back to our login page. And again, if we log in again, let's see if this worked. So next router was not mounted. So let's go to our login. Let's take a look at our router from Next navigation. Make sure that it is from Next navigation, and in our app over here, this should also be from Next navigation. So there it is. If we press on sign out, no errors. Let's just sign in to make a new account. So there it is. We're going to call this testing@gmail.com. For the password, I'm going to do 321. Press on sign up. This will take some time, and nothing is happening, and that's because we don't have anything that would redirect the users. So let's import use router. And again, this is why testing everything is a great thing to do. So over here we have our response, and then we can say if response.status equals to 200, then we're going to say router.push to the home page. And we can also remove the console log here because we don't want the user to see that kind of information. Same goes in the login. If we do have a console log, no, we don't. So if we go back in here, it sent us to this page. So let's try this again. We're going to go to sign up, and we're getting our error over here. So let's try this again. Navigation. Then we have router in our sign up. So change this to navigation. This is why it's also important that every time you import use router, it's from Next navigation, because then you're going to get an error. So in here, let's create another one. I'm going to call this one testing number 2@gmail.com, or I'm just going to say 2. Password is going to be 12345. Sign up. And of course, we're getting this message that says that this current password was found in a data breach. So of course, in this case, it doesn't matter, but it could also have a function that would tell your user to have at least one capital letter or different symbols and that kind of stuff. But we're not going to go that far. So of course, we can sign out again. And if we go to log in, we can use our testing and write 12345, press on login, and of course we're going to get logged in, and we can see that everything is working perfectly well. And so this is going to be the end of this video, so I really hope that you enjoyed it and you learned some new information. And if you did, then make sure to leave a like, subscribe, so that you don't miss upcoming content like this. And we are going to be also creating Chrome extension that connects to the database and it interacts with our page, and they both have stuff to do with signing up and logging in, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. But again, if you have any questions or if you have anything that you'd like to say or even any video suggestions, then let me know down in the comments below, and hopefully see you in the next video.